You're watching TVC Breakfast. Nigeria's health sector has been grappling with challenges ranging from brain drain, poor health facilities, and inadequate financing. Now, these challenges have limited the potential of the sector, leading many Nigerians to seek for healthcare abroad. Nigerians spend between 1.2 and 1.6 billion dollars on medical tourism, a huge drain on the country's foreign reserves. The case of alleged organ harvesting by former Deputy Senate President Ike Ekweremadu has again brought the issue of medical tourism to the fore. How can medical tourism be reduced to the barest minimum? Join us in the studio as a public health expert, Dr. Tuyi Mebawondu, and via Zoom, Professor from Denmark, Professor of Veterinary Medicine, Veterinary Human and Veterinary Medicine, Professor Ade Ojeniyi. Join us on the program this morning. Dr. Mebawondu, good morning.
Good morning, Mike.
Good to see you.
Thank you.
Great. And Professor Ojeniyi, good to have you join us too.
Delighted to be here.
Great. Right. All right, let me start with you in the studio, Dr. Mebawondu. We have often talked about the issue of medical tourism, and if you look at comments or you read comments from Nigerians regarding this issue, is there anything really wrong with the issue of anyone traveling abroad to seek medical assistance or seek medical help anywhere else apart from his or her country?
Well, let's face it, the medical profession is so exposed in such a way that you can actually leave your country and seek treatment. Our concern is the preponderance. And let me, take your mind back to when Boris Yeltsin was sick and he needed a surgery. And the only person that can actually do that sort of surgery, by estimate, was the gentleman, one of the Debakis. Debakis are just families, father, grandfather, who are heart surgeons. So they have to actually fly him all the way to Russia to go and provide the surgery, and he came back. In reality, medical profession has been leveled in such a way that you can enter anywhere to get your treatment. But the problem with Nigeria is, first and foremost, you are looking at a country where virtually the health is non-existent. You look at ourselves, doctors, about 43,000. The infrastructure is broken, no finance. We're doing, at best, 4-point-something or 5% of budget on health. We have to rely on donors massively. And then you see that at the end of the day, people that are supposed to make law, implement policies that can change the health system are actually demarketing the health by, at the slightest, they carry their bag and travel abroad to get that done. So, and then the only thing health can be meaningful is when it reaches the maximum number of people in the maximum space possible and at a remote place. So the question is that an average Nigerian, what are they getting in terms of their health delivery system? If we have gone to that level where we are now having, those indices being reversed, maternal child mortality, hypertension, communicable disease being reversed, neglected tropical disease being reversed, then we can excuse that, your case is a special one, then you can now go abroad and take care. And then, but again, if we don't put some regulation there, it's just that once you have money, you abandon the country, like everything. In education, you abandon the country. In health, you abandon the country. Everything you abandon. Even if you want to do construction, you abandon the country. So again, what do we have left? So in this wise, it won't be proper to start situating that, okay, I have the right to get myself treated, then I abandon what I'm supposed to do in this part of the world because I can run abroad to get it done. So, and you look at the fund involved, 1.2 billion, 1.6 billion, it's a huge amount of money. So we can't run a health system like this. It's collapsed. We cannot respond to anything except we have to call in partners. Then why then are we running universities and graduating doctors every year? And then this same doctor run abroad and get things done and do miracles, okay, in a way. And then here we are, it's neglected. We are missing a lot of, because it could have actually been a means for us to do what we call a reverse brain drain, where we now set up facilities here. People come from other parts of the world to come and assess because of the cost. And that was what Indian did. After exit, they go a reverse brain drain. You see institution building big hospitals, intervening for their people, and then it became a source of fund for them. This is another pointer, a sad narrative from many perspectives anyway.
All right.
Professor Ojeniyi, The story of the former deputy Senate president is a very touching one. But you see that it seems even in seeking medical treatment abroad, Nigerians always find a way to bring criminality into it or some kind of mischief into it. Because the story we first heard was that the boy was 15 and that he was a minor. But we know that the boy has actually reached the age of majority. He's almost 22 years old. And what we have now is a very touching situation. How do we get out of this situation where we don't only go out to go and seek medical treatment, but it has become complicated by mischief and even possibly criminality?
Professor Ojeniyi, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, that question was for you.
Goodness me. I'm sorry it has to be repeated. I didn't hear much.
Okay, I was saying that the case of Ike Ekweremadu and his daughter is a case of medical tourism in which even mischief and maybe criminality has become part of it. Is it not complicating our own view of medicine, even in Nigeria, as we go forward?
There's so much echo. I can discern.
All right, Professor, you may have to help us either turn down the volume of your TV. You have a TV set there that is on. You have to turn it down totally. Otherwise, there's going to be that hallback effect that we often have.
Let me try.
Anyway,
Yeah.
while we allow him to
Let me just
respond to that.
respond. Now, like Uncle Sam said, it's actually a huge embarrassment because you look at it, here is a young lady who's sick. Here is the father who has some prominence, real prominence in Nigeria, and actually a visiting lecturer in one of the universities in the UK, and then we are seeing all this scandal. Now, if you look at the whole spectrum of organ donation, you have the intention to donate, okay? You have the process, and then you have some of the recipients, okay? Now, each of these three pillars have legislation that should actually guide it and guide it properly. Okay. Now, in Nigeria, it may not be, because we don't really have that legislation to drive that. But in UK, the key thing is that it's an opt-out thing. Because you see, the demand for organ donation is increasing every time. And then we've seen a lot of black markets, what we call red markets, huge amount of money, 600 million to 1 billion dollars involved. And there's still a lot of people on the ground trying to transport people and then harvest their organ in a way. It's a lot of dark market. And then because of that, because of demand and supply thing, UK had to actually enact what they call the opt-out thing. That, okay, if you're sign the paper, if you're a citizen, when you die, your organ can be used because you can either use a living person or a deceased organ as a donor. So when you die, the organ can be used. But still, your family still have control. They can say, okay, we're not giving the organ again because of something or the other religion cause. But what has happened is that we've moved from a country without that regulation to another jurisdiction where there's a strict regulation about organ donation. And then the critical counseling must follow. Okay? And the person can opt out at any time. I can tell you my experience with people that are trying to get organs in India. It's a lot of process. Plenty letters from here, from relatives. It has to keep going. And then even their medical council in India has to actually approve that thing. All your letters will still go there, approved before it is done. So we see that at this level, the donor, the hospital, the doctors, they're very, very important in the spectrum of things to make the thing work properly. But what has happened is that we should be able to maybe step back, from trying to look at, criminalizing this experience. It has happened. We have to allow the court to do their own bit. But the lesson to be learned is that we must be able to sit down at this point and say, how do we structure organ donation? What is the process? What is the counseling? What is the opt-out? But the only criminal thing in this issue is that if you now have to offer money for somebody who's giving the organs, the only country where it is legally allowed to offer money for organ donation is Iran. Apart from Iran, and even Iran is within their own country, you are not supposed to give money to anybody because for organ donation. Governments find a way to actually help you, the person who is going to release the organ, and even the family and all that stuff. But that to solicit and say that, listen, I'm going to pay you $10,000, $5,000, or $20,000 for giving me organ becomes a challenge worldwide, except Iran. These are just the tricky part of the whole issue.
How about in a situation where an organ is donated and somebody shows appreciation for what has been done?
Well, yeah, well,
would it be seen in the context of?
Yes, I know that. You see, on the hand, those kind of things will happen, but it must not be a general thing that is known that okay, for donating this organ, I am collecting this amount of money. Yeah, a transactional kind of thing is not allowed in organ transplantation anywhere in the world, except, of course, Iran, like I mentioned. So for us, first and foremost, in this country, we need to, because the demand for organs, it's increasing. Kidney is leading, any organ that can actually be bones, cornea, eggs. The simplest organ donation actually is blood. Blood transfusion is an organ donation in a way. So that one has been simplified in a way that, anybody can take that. But we need to actually sit down in this part of the world and figure out how do we relate to organ process. What are the committees? What are the ethics, the psychology, the counseling? All these things must be factored in, and we need to discuss critically before an organ moves from one person to another. What are the processes? Because even the person, what we call post-donation blues, when the person after giving the organ starts saying, oh, I've lost something. And some of them actually come down with a serious other mental health problem. So, but what we're looking at, we see the flow of the organ donation from poor country to rich country. In fact, even in Canada, US, and everywhere, you see people going to other parts of the world where they're poor, where they can dispense money to get organ, and they're frowning seriously against it. It's also a flow from rich person, from poor person to rich person. There's that kind of imbalance that needs to be addressed, and legislation can help us address that. But, you see, and then if you look at this case happening in London, you remember, it was last year or so, September or there, about 2021, that a headless body was found in Thames. So there are a lot of complex issues, driving all these things you're saying. So, but whatever it takes, before a person leaves Nigeria that I'm going to donate organ, there must have been some doctors, some health people who had examined the guy and said that, listen, you are fit, go. There must have been an hospital that said, okay, this person that you are bringing is okay. So by the time this thing is unraveled, you see it's going to be like a can of worms. This compromise here and there in the whole process of organ donation that shouldn't have violated any of the laws in UK or even in Nigeria.
Now, can you hear us now,
Professor Ojeniyi?
At your service.
Okay. How come that since you live abroad, you're able to answer this question? How come people are able to move from Nigeria to a place like UK to go and they still secure visa, whereas they don't tell them the real reason they want to go abroad, that is to go and donate part of their body? How come? What is going on with the immigration service that allows this kind of thing to happen?
Well, it's the immigration service that can answer that question. And I believe that the immigration service is fed some information to allow the act to be executed, because it's whatever information that would profit those who want to get a fellow or fella out of the country to the United Kingdom or elsewhere that they will feed the immigration, both in Nigeria and abroad. And so I don't think it's the immigration's fault. It is the source of information given by the perpetrators that actually determine the line of action that immigration and visa issuance take place.
Really, let's stay with you here. What is the ideal standard practice when it comes to kidney transplant? Who should be involved? How should the information go? Where should it start from, and where should it end? Can you run us through that procedure? What is supposed to be generally?
It is the compatibility of the donor kidney to the recipient. Now, I was simply stunned to hear about the transaction of a young fellow being taken abroad to harvest his kidney. I mean, how in the name of goodness would you just take somebody and harvest the person's kidney without experts establishing the compatibility? Because there are a lot of issues that have to be resolved medically before you can transplant an organ from an individual to another one. What's the risk of rejection? And is it free will that the donor is giving away his or her kidney? I mean, I was simply stunned.
So you're implying that even the Senate president, who was supposed to have followed particular process in doing this,
Former Deputy Senate
President Ike Ekweremadu, who was supposed to have followed all of this, actually was also probably playing mischief too. Just wanted the boy over, probably didn't instruct him to say the truth about why he was obtaining visa to go abroad. And he didn't do his research, which he was supposed to do about compatibility or non-compatibility of the boy's system with his own daughters.
Well, that's exactly what I suspect. And that was probably the reason why he bypassed the procedure, because he knew very well, I guess, that certain issues have to be resolved before the transplant can take place. I mean, money should never, ever be involved in transplants, because then you are just reducing human beings to spare parts that can be bought and sold at an auction, with the highest bidder running away with the trophy. And we don't want to reduce humanity to that level.
Dr. Mebawondu, the point is, there was something you mentioned earlier when you cited India, talking about their medical tourism. There was a time they also had, a brain drain in this regard, and then eventually everybody had to come back with the brain gain, as the case may be. Can we begin to see, or should we begin to see, that what we have now, if we have to use or cite instances from India, someday, maybe in the next decade or so, it might be a brain gain for Nigeria, if all these professionals somehow need to come back to the country someday?
Well, no doubt, we hope and we actually earnestly look for that experience where we have a reverse brain drain. The first thing that happens to actually really maximize that is you see that dispatch where people see Nigerians everywhere in the world doing well in surgery, doing well in medicine, and they are sunk, okay? It gets to a point because there's a passion that no matter once you grow up in this country, you still have that kind of attachment. to your place of birth and infant nurture. And then, we have to, first of all, the right atmosphere. We have to improve security. We have to provide infrastructure. Okay, we must be able to make gain available in regards to, attract requisite investment, even by Nigerians, because I've seen where a whole University of Columbus had to actually build a multi-level, 10, 15-story centers in Mumbai for heart. Asian Heart Hospital was built by another place. So we're looking at that. People are ready to do investment. I'm sure, even in some part of Nigeria, you're seeing a little bit of that, where some funds were moved into the country to build an eye center in a way. We can start repeating those kind of things. Nigeria is not a hopeless thing. It's just like, you have a basin, a white basin with fine ornaments, painting under it, but you have dirty water poured on it. You pour the dirty water away and you put the clean water. You see the beauty. And that's the transition that may happen in Nigeria once, we get some critical indices right. We're hopeful. We're hopeful. But again, the critical point of donor recipients, okay, must be addressed first of all in terms of legality, the legal part of it, counseling properly, getting the consent of the parents, getting the consent of the person, and let the person understand what it means if you now have to actually post donation, what may happen to you. But once money is involved, it is a criminal thing. It's not allowed anywhere in the world.
Now, the story of Ekweremadu and his daughter is a very touching one. But it also tells us how desperate it is for anyone who wants to save her own child. And please help us speak to how this desperation can really drive people to do very strange things.
Yeah, parents' love, father's love can make you do a lot of things, and you look at yourself, money does a lot of things, but there's some things money will not touch. It will not touch. And then you look at it and say, listen, I am this person, that person. How can they here on earth that you say, I cannot get this thing done? And then, of course, when you're in the family interaction, you see that this is my daughter that I'm thinking of a big future for. But in reality, if you have a good health system, all those things can be done in Nigeria. So, a father's love, father's passion, you cannot take that away. And then also the right of the daughter, of the young girl, to have life. Right. Again, in a way, you could not take that away. But the critical issue is that this issue of how do you get the person to come and then donate and probably pay for that kidney is a big issue. So beyond that, I'm sure the lady will be going through some challenges and trauma, even the young lady and the family, because of her. She was saying that because of me now, my parents are facing all these things. And we need to attend to that psychological aspect for that young girl. We should do that.
Okay. Professor Ojeniyi, let me come to you on this. The point there is, there was a time that even foreigners came to Nigeria for medical tourism. We hear of that stories like that. The Ibadan University Teaching Hospital, UCH exactly, was one example where people had confidence in the hospital and facility and the personnel, and they traveled all the way to come to Ibadan for those kind of critical medical attention. We have lost that right now, but if we have to start putting steps together, how do we regain that platform of glory for the country?
There are three issues that have to be put in place: the infrastructure, and then three conditions that have to be met for every medical personnel. Number one, safety. Number two, comfort. Number three, feeling of being welcome. And that's what has forced many members of the medical profession to flee the country. Because when you are in a place where you feel welcome, where you feel safe, where you feel comfortable, that is your home. And the development in our country had simply eroded those three conditions that are necessary to retain brains in our country. And all over the world, you find Nigerians extremely brilliant. Many of them could even be candidates for Nobel Prize in virtually every discipline. Where are they? They're outside the country, while the country itself is just sinking to the abyss. That makes me extremely sad. I was in USAID myself for a decade, and just imagine that people from Saudi Arabia, from the United Arab Emirates, came to Nigeria for medical treatment, came to USAID for medical treatment. These days, you find that our rulers just coffin the body plane and travel abroad, do absolutely nothing to ensure that brilliant Nigerians yield the service to the population.
All right. We have to leave you here now. Thank you so much, Professor Ade Ojeniyi, Professor of Human and Veterinary Medicine, joining us all the way from Denmark. We thank you so much for your time this morning. And Dr. Tuyi Mebawondu, thank you very much for coming as well.
Always my pleasure.
Thank you. Great.